What does it mean to be pliable? What does it mean to be bendable? Well, we might get some insight to that from Robert Frost today. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion that will appear in the poetry discussion playlist here on the channel, as well as the Robert Frost playlist here on the channel. The poem in question today is known as Birches from Robert Frost, and it reads as such. When I see birches bend to left and right across the lines of straighter, darker trees, I like to think some boy's been swinging them. But swinging doesn't bend them down to stay as ice storms do. Often you must have seen them loaded with ice a sunny winter morning after a rain. They click upon themselves as the breeze rises and turn many-colored as the stir cracks and crazes their enamel. Soon the sun's warmth makes them shed crystal shells, shattering and avalanching on the snow crust, such heaps of broken glass to sweep away. You'd think the inner dome of heaven had fallen. They are dragged to the withered bracken by the load, and they seem not to break, though once they are bowed for so long, they never right themselves. You may see their trunks arching in the woods, years afterwards, trailing their leaves on the ground like girls on hands and knees that throw their hair before them over their heads to dry in the sun. But I was going to say, when truth broke in with all her matter of fact about the ice storm, I should prefer to have some boy bend them as they went out and in to fetch some cows. Some boy too far from town to learn baseball, whose only play was what he found himself summer or winter and could play alone. One by one he subdued his father's trees by writing them down over and over again until he took the stiffness out of them, and not one thing but hung limp, not one was left for him to conquer. He learned all there was to learn about not launching out too soon, and so not carrying the tree away clear to the ground. He always kept his poise, the top branches climbing carefully with the same pains you use to fill a cup up to the brim and even above the brim. Then he flung outward, feet first with a swish, kicking his way through the air to the ground. So was I once, myself a swinger of birches. And so I dream of going back to be. It's when I'm weary of considerations and life is too much like a pathless wood where your face burns and tickles with the cobwebs broken across it, and one eye is weeping from a twig's having lashed across it open. I'd like to get away from the earth a while and then come back to it and begin over. May no fate willfully misunderstand me, and half grant what I wish and snatch me away, not to return. Earth's the right place for love. I know love. I know it's where I know where it's likely to go better. I'd like to go by climbing a birch tree and climb black branches up a snow-white trunk toward heaven till the tree could bear no more but dipped its top and sent me down again. That would be good, both going and coming back. One could do worse than be a swinger of birches. So the reason I highlighted this in the read through is because that's an odd turn there, isn't it? Earth's the right place for love. Where, oh, where does that come from in the greater story of this poem? We're here talking about birches trees that are bent to the side, bent to the ground, and our speaker comes out and says, "Oh, well, Earth's the right place for love." Well, all we have to all we have to do is assume that all poetry is at its core a metaphor for something else, and once we assume that this poem is a metaphor in fact for something else, and we are given the weird thing that sticks out, what we have to do is go find what that is pointing to. So let's go all the way back to the top to see if we can notice anything. When I see birches bend to left and right across the lines of straighter, darker trees, I like to think some boy's been swinging them. But swinging them does not bend them down to stay as ice storms do. So here we have the admission from our speaker that it's the ice storms that has broken these trees. Okay, so it's the ice storms, but if it's the ice storms that broke the trees, then there is a reason we are getting whatever else it is that our speaker is telling us. Our speaker is telling us, I have this fantasy that it's boys that are swinging on them that break them. Okay, so this is a peculiar dereliction of our speaker. Our speaker knows that this is not the truth, but he likes to think it anyway. Well, why would you like to think that thing? That's the thing then that is motivating this speaker to tell this poem. I like to think some boys been swinging them. But what is them? The them here there we go. That's a good one. I like to think some boys been swinging them, swinging birches. Okay, so if this is the peculiar thing to our speaker, he likes to think some boy has been swinging these trees as opposed to accepting the truth that it is the weather that has done this. There's a reason he wants to think of the boys bending them, swinging them, playing there with the birches. Then we have to understand, what does our speaker mean by birches? A birch is a tree, but if we're accepting this as metaphor, we're accepting that it's not the ice storms that did it, it's some imaginary boy that is playing among the trees that is bending them to the left and to the right, breaking them, ruining them, making them grow in hostile patterns across the ground as opposed to straight up as they should. Then it is the metaphor of the birch that we have to unravel. You may see their trunks arching in the woods, the birches, years afterwards trailing their leaves on the ground. This is the deformation that happens to them when a boy's been swinging on them. Those birches are like girls on hands and knees that throw their hair before them over their heads to dry in the sun. So our speaker here is likening these birches to young women who are drying their heads in the sun, which is to say they have just bathed, which is to say there is some sexual allure to them. We are being presented with a freshly bathed woman who is drying her hair in the sun. So now we're almost there, aren't we? We have the weird element from the bottom here explained. Earth's the right place for love. Love between the boy that swings on the trees and the women the trees represent. The women, Earth's the right place for a man to go ahead and bend these women back and forth. Um, where are we at? Give me 1 second. I apologize. So was I myself a swinger of birches. So was I myself a lover of women. So was I myself a guy who was pretty good with the ladies. And so I dream of going back to be. It's when I'm weary of considerations and life is too much a pathless wood where your face burns and tickles with the cobwebs broken across it, and one eye is weeping from a twig's having lashed across it open. So his hesitance comes from a twig having lashed across it open. The reason he is gun shy with the women is he has had some negative experience in his past. He has been left or cheated on or beaten, whatever it is. That is what has turned our speaker away from the birches, from the women, from the activities which would get you women and swinging from birches. So it appears to me that is where we're going with this poem. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share these videos with other literature lovers. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping poetry videos every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.